Hi everyone, welcome back to Padhai Logic. If you have an upcoming exam on e-commerce and you want to lock in your concept, revise every single important topic and Padhai Logic recommendation, you are in perfect place. Today we are diving into a complete one-shot masterclass on e-commerce, and we aren't just reading textbooks. We are breaking down the actual past university questions into simple concept with real world examples that you can easily remember and write in your answer sheets. So grab your notebook, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and let's get your grades up. Let's look at the major questions that keep showing up year after year in your exams. When we analyze the past year question papers for Unit 1, everything boils down to these 6 core conceptual pillars. Take a look at these. So first is, how does traditional commerce different from e-commerce? Okay, and along with this we need to state the critical pros and cons of having the e-commerce. Then we'll talk about what are the unique features of e-commerce technology, and this is a favorite favorite long form high weightage question which comes in the Unit 1 part for most probably 6 to 10 marker, right? And then we talk about how the modern market is driven by e-commerce. Over here we will be critically analyzing and supporting e-commerce, providing its advantages over every other existing traditional commerce. And then we'll talk about what is the meaning of e-commerce and how exactly it is related to e-business. So we'll see the relation as well as the difference, which will be easy to remember, the comparison table. And then we'll talk about what are the major technological building blocks of e-commerce, right? And after talking about that, we'll discuss the ethical issues which are related to e-commerce. So don't worry about memorizing the complex jargon. We are going through each topic step by step with real world business scenarios, so you can easily write the great short or long answer questions. So let's get straight at the foundations. So what is e-commerce? So if the examiner asks you what e-commerce is, do not just write down buying and selling online. It is just too basic for university level. Alright. So look at the core academic definition, which states that e-commerce is defined as digitally enabled commercial transaction. Okay, between whom? Between and among the organization and individual. And now there are 3 keywords in this. First is digitally enabled. Okay, so this means that the entire transaction relies on digital tech. It relies on the internet, the web, right, and the mobile apps as well. Alright, so if there is no digital medium, there is no e-commerce. And the second keyword you see is the commercial transaction. So commercial transaction, there must be an exchange of value, right? There must be money moving across boundaries in return of the physical product or in return of the service provided by the e-commerce. And the third is the between whom are we performing this e-commerce, right? Between whom is this commercial transaction happening? That is the scope. So it spans all digital transaction between business and its consumer, or between the multiple corporate business, or between consumer to consumer, right? So this is the actual definition. You need to write it complete from the exam point of view, understand these 3 keywords and frame your answer. If you see in a long answers, a high weightage question is on what are the features of e-commerce, right? What sets apart e-commerce from other technology? So these are the 8 unique features you need to list down. Alright, so the very first is ubiquity. So unlike the traditional commerce, we require a marketplace in a traditional commerce, right? You need a store which you can visit and buy things. But unlike that, e-commerce is everywhere. Alright, it creates a marketplace that follows you home. You can order groceries online from your bed at 2 a.m. That is the example that e-commerce is present anytime, anywhere, right? Second is the global reach. So what happens is, when we are working with technology. Technology does not care about the culture or national borders, right? You can reach anywhere without caring about the geographical boundaries around you. For example, you have a clothing brand in India, but you find the loyal customers in London or in New York, and without setting up the physical international store there in New York or in London, you are selling to your loyal customers through e-commerce, right? And you don't need a physical storefront over there. That is how you cross the global reach. That is how you create your brand that is internationally available without major investment of physical storefronts. Next, you have universal standards. So you see, unlike the older corporate technology that use these closed systems, right? Today's technology, today's core corporate works on internet, and internet is a universal standard. It is shared by every country. So this dramatically lowers the entry cost for merchants, right? And you can search and the search cost for everyday customers, everyday consumer is also reduced. You don't have to physically spend your time and energy and cost to reach a particular place to buy a thing, right? And it is also a universal standard because everyone is using internet, and e-commerce is a is driven by internet, right? Next is richness. So what is richness? This refers to a complexity and depth of marketing message. So you see what happens in traditional media. There's a TV and a high sensory richness, but reached a passive audience, right? You see, while a physical salesperson would customize their message, but only one person at a time. All right. So e-commerce, what it does is it blends the audio, it blends the video and interactive elements into a single rich experience, and that rich experience is delivered to millions of people simultaneously. So this complexity and context of a message that is created by e-commerce is rich in itself to indulge the people, all right, to indulge the people and to have the similar face-to-face connection with the people who are selling the product. Sometimes you feel that no, this is the right product for me by seeing just an advertisement through e-commerce platform. What is that? Because there is richness in the content, you're able to feel it, you're able to sense that this might be the right opportunity, right? Next is interactivity. So what happens in televisions, or what happen in when you see a poster, it is just a one-way communication. Only one person is talking to you, telling you about their own product. But you see in e-commerce we have genuine two-way communication. All right, so it allows two-way communication. So the consumer aren't just, they are not just viewers, they interact directly. How? By filtering the products, by putting up custom option, by tracking their orders, and they're actively co-participating in their journey of buying. And providing valuable feedback is one of the important example of how two-way communication works, right? Next we have information density. So you see, the internet is vastly increases the total amount and accuracy of information available to everyone. So this creates a clear price transparency. Okay, you can instantly compare the prices across the vendors, right? Like you want to buy a mobile phone and you're comparing multiple phones in a row to see which one suits you better. So this information density helps you explore various other items as well, which is not possible in a physical storefront, right? And it also provides cost transparency. So what happens, you visit multiple sites to check the cost, and which one is the lowest and which one is most preferable to you, you buy that. So having that level of vast information available to everyone is quite suitable, right? Next we come to personalization and customization. So what happens, we can target the specific individuals with personalized marketing over e-commerce. So for example, your product, like it is you want to sell a product which is based on their name, on their browsing history, or their past purchases. So think of Amazon. So what happens is it shows you a completely unique personalized home page, right? So through this home page, through this level of following the algorithm, right? So this is how people are able to customize their product according to people as well, so that their product is reached to wider market. Okay, and the eighth is the social technology. So there's a major shift in e-commerce from traditional commerce, is that e-commerce technology empowers users to create, to review and share content globally via the social content. You see, there is marketing on Instagram, on WhatsApp, on Snapchat. So we are using the social connections, we are using the social technology to share that about our product, and to get the product reviews, to empower the people, to allow their channel or their network to have the information about your product, right? Influential marketing, you ever heard of? So these are the eight major features of e-commerce which you can mention in your exam if asked. E-commerce completely remove those limitation of existing traditional commerce, turning the physical local market into a global market space, right? So this shift brings massive advantages as well as few distinct challenges to the list as well. So let's discuss about the core advantages. First is the market expansion. So a small home based business can easily sell products to the customers on the other side of the world without opening a physical branch. This is the biggest example of e-commerce, that we can easily expand our market without having a bunch of cost included in that. Then there is reduced information asymmetry. So in the past, what happened, that sellers held all the power because they knew the true quality, the wholesale cost of the product. So while the buyer had to take their word for it, right? Ki I am giving the guarantee that this product is this and that, this and that. But e-commerce balances this thing out. So today the consumers can quickly compare the prices and read the reviews across multiple sites before spending a dime. Then you have disintermediation. So this is the great term to use in the exam. Please write it in your keywords. So it simply means cutting out the middlemen. So middlemen like wholesaler, brokers and local distributors. So what happens, a manufacturer, like for example you are the business owner, you are selling directly to the final customers. So it is D2C, direct to customers. So it is lowering the cost for everyone, there is no middlemen involved. All right. And next we have is 24/7 availability. Okay, so there is no opening hours. Okay, or you can go to the website whenever you want, you can place the order and you get the delivery according to the whatever the process is. And there is mass customization always. So you see, technology allows for one-to-one marketing where products can be tailored for the individual taste at the lower cost. So these are the advantages of e-commerce, and to understand the flaws as well, it is very important to make sure that we know what are the key disadvantages. So first is the privacy and security risk. So you see, storing personal profiles and credit card details, these leave online leaves platform open to data breaches and identity theft as well. So these digital problems, like hackers sometimes target the website and snatch away all the data. So this is a very important concern. Then there is a digital divide. What does that mean? That there is not all the population have equal access to high speed internet, or everyone does not have data digital literacy. So this can contain a gap, this can divide the population, and your reach is also segmented to a particular level of people, right? But this is now a quite irrelevant point, since everyone is digitally active, they are becoming, and I think the gap will be eliminated soon. Then there might be trust issues. You see, customers can't physically touch or try on the product before buying. So meaning they have to entirely rely on the photos and description or the reviews. And sometimes the reviews can be biased as well. So there can be trust issue. And you see, there is high initial infrastructure cost. So while you save money on the storefront rent, right, but you have to invest heavily on secure web servers, on cyber security, on smooth payment systems, and complex delivery logistics. So this is where you have the initial cost of setting up. And there is also social isolation. So this shift to online culture has reduced the physical human interaction, right? And it can impact the local communities which are having a storefronts, because their small business would actually come to close. So it is also a harm to the local communities. Alright, there's one quick question for you guys. You need to tell me 5 differences between traditional commerce and e-commerce. So you see, traditional commerce, trade is completely bound to physical time and space. But what happens in e-commerce? There is no physical travel. Alright, there is no brick and mortar storefront. Then there is a seller, which is seller has localized reach, like there's only people in the neighborhood or in a town that will walk in the store. But e-commerce completely remove those limitations by turning the physical local market into a global market space. Alright, and in the traditional market space there is only one way communication, but in e-commerce there is two-way communication. And all the further differences between traditional and e-commerce, please let me know in the comment section below. Let's move forward and discuss about the major understanding of how we got here. What is the brief history of e-commerce? So we evolved in 3 major waves. So if it comes as a small short marker question, you can obviously write these 3 pointers. So first is the invention period. So this was the early experimental phase. What happened in this phase? We focused on the simple retail goods. So it was heavily funded by venture capital and it led by pure online players. So what we were doing, we were accumulating the historic .com crash of 2000, right? And this is why it ended over here. But then we again came back. How? As a consolidation wave. So e-commerce became much more business driven and focused on the actual earnings and probability of actual profit. All right, so the traditional retail brands stepped in and they started bleeding the physical stores with online platform using bricks and clicks approach. All right, and then we have the reinvention period. So this wave sparked by smartphone revolution. So this modern era is driven by mobile accessibility, social media influence, localized services, and on-demand platforms like Uber, Airbnb. So this is the 3 phases in which we divide the evolution of e-commerce in shorter form. Alright, next we move forward and discuss about e-commerce versus e-business. Have you ever heard of this term e-business? I hope you have, and if you haven't, I'll let you know what e-business is. Okay, so think of e-business as a massive master engine that is running inside a company. Alright, and it handles the internal system like HR, like tracking a factory or handling the internal communication. Whereas e-commerce, on the other hand, is a front-facing retail store window, for example. So it is the exact point where the internal engine crosses the company boundary. All right. So to shake the hands with the outside world. So we are coming out of the company walls where e-business exists, and we are going out of the e-business out to the social world. Okay, and we are doing, we are exchanging money for goods. So e-business turns into e-commerce the moment transactions shift outside the company wall to interact with an external buyer. That's it. That is how e-commerce and e-business are connected. All right. So e-commerce refers to transaction across the firm boundary, whereas e-business is the encompasses of internal process of firm. I hope you understood the difference. Now we'll talk about the tabular difference between the both. So e-commerce is digitally enabled commercial transaction, whereas e-business is digitally enabled transaction process within a firm. This is the important thing you need to write. So scope of e-commerce is narrower because it is a subset of e-business. So this is e-business, this is e-commerce, right? And e-business is broader and it includes e-commerce, and it focuses on external transaction, whereas e-business focuses on internal efficiency of the organization. It crosses the boundaries, it interacts with the customer, and it stays within the firm boundaries, and it requires exchange of value. So there might be money or services involved, and here does not necessarily require an exchange of value. And the key activities involved in e-commerce is like online shopping, payment, B2B sales, and in e-business there are HR management, internal communication, automated supply chains. Primary goal is to generate revenue and reach the customers globally, whereas e-business primary goal is to improve the organizational efficiency. Now let's quickly break down the difference between e-commerce, m-commerce and social commerce in a tabular format for your better understanding. So e-commerce is the digitally enabled commercial transaction via internet and the web, whereas m-commerce is used of handheld wireless devices to purchase the good, and social commerce is where we are enabling the social networks and social relationships. So what are the core platforms that are required? We require desktop computer, laptop. There should be a fixed line of internet. Here we only require all the smartphone, tablet and mobile apps, right? And in social commerce there is very much need of social media platforms. There is fixed location factor in e-commerce. It is usually preferred at home or in an office, but m-commerce is ubiquitous. That means it is location independent and often location aware. So we use GPS over here a lot. Then there is contextual location factor in social commerce. So it depends on the user's social feed and interaction that there is independent or dependent location factor or not. If we talk about driving force, the search engines and direct navigation is required in e-commerce, and driving force for n-commerce is convenience, portability, on-demand accessibility, and for social commerce is the social influence. Since this influencer is on height these days, so the user generated content and the peer reviews are affecting the actual business as well. So if we talk about the typical level of purchase, in e-commerce there is high value items requiring research, right? And in m-commerce there's quick on the go purchases like ticket, travel booking, or you are talking about coffee. And in social commerce it is more about lifestyle products. It is more about fashion, trending things, and discovering items and trying new items because there was influencer influencing that new item, right? And if we talk about customer interaction, there is transactional. So consumer browses and buys. In m-commerce it is personalized. You get personalized push notification directly according to your past history or your browser history. And in social commerce the customer interaction is collaborative. You see, it involves likes, whether there is a community validation or not for a particular product. So it depends, and the timing is often planned and scheduled for the e-commerce, and timing for m-commerce is immediate. You see, there is impulse driven micro movement which drives the business. And you see, in the level of social commerce, we are discovering while scrolling through social media. Alright team, let's get into the last topic of unit 1, the 3 technological building blocks of e-commerce. So now if an exam asks you explain the infrastructure or building blocks of e-commerce, the biggest mistake you can make is treating the internet and the World Wide Web as the same thing. They are completely different, and to maximize the score You must describe these three components, the internet, the web, and the mobile application, as a three-layered architecture built specially to allow business and consumer to exchange value. So let's break down the three layers of building blocks of e-commerce. So first is the internet. Internet is the infrastructure layer. Okay, think of internet as a massive worldwide network of physical highways, bridges, tunnels, and traffic light. So it is a raw physical and logical foundation of basically everything. So without this highway system, no data can travel and no e-commerce can exist. Alright, so it is the foundation of e-commerce. So there is core mechanism. It relies on TCP IP. This is a transmission control protocol and internet protocol. So this is the universal rule book, you can say. TCP acts like a master logistic manager. It chops the large data file into tiny bit sized data packages called packets. Alright, so if you have a large data, so it is get it transmitted into small data packets. Alright, and these data packets, we check them before sending, and we send it to the final destination to make sure that nothing was lost. This is the work of TCP. And what does IP does? It acts like a global postal address system. Alright, so it is stamping a unique numerical number. It is giving a unique ID to every packet so that we know what exactly we are sending and where we are sending. So this is the first thing, TCP IP. And the what thing I was talking about, slicing the digital message into a unit, this is called packet switching. So this is the core feature. Then comes the client server computing. So this is how data is shared. When you open your laptop or you open your phone, you are the client. And when you search for a product on Amazon, your client machine sends the request over a digital highway, that is the internet. So Amazon's for example, Amazon's massive high powered computer, the server, so what they does is they process the request and sends the product detail right back to you. You are the client. So this is how client server computing works. Alright, then comes the IoT connection. So the internet now extend beyond to computer and sensors by creating Internet of Things, so which feeds the data back into e-commerce system. Alright, so this is where you are using all these things as a part of the infrastructure layer. So imagine if you want to buy a pair of sneakers online. So the physical data of the shoe listing doesn't travel as one giant heavy file. Thanks to the mechanism of packet switching, the sneaker listing is sliced into million tiny packets. And one packet might travel through cable under a Atlantic Ocean, and other might route through server in Asia, and the third might bounce off a satellite. So they take different paths to avoid the digital traffic jam, and then reassemble the perfectly. Every packet is reassembled on your screen in milliseconds. So this is how the infrastructure layer is working. Plus, if we talk about IoT, think of a smart warehouse shelf that automatically track the inventory, right, and alert the system. When shoe stack are running low, the system is alerting. Now let's move up to the second layer, that is World Wide Web. So this is the information and presentation layer. If we talk about internet as an highway, so web is a collection of actual cars which is running on top of the internet infrastructure. Okay, so the web function through a protocol known as HTTP. HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. It acts like a standard delivery truck. Okay, and it is carrying the interlinked document across the network. So to explain this clearly, you need to have a understanding of the detailed key components. So these are the key components. First is the HTML. HTML is hypertext markup language. So this is the layout blueprint. It tells the computer how to structure a web page. So where to put the text, where to position the image, where to place the buy now button. All this is done when you create a website, and you create a website or a web page using this language. Next you have URL. URL stand for Uniform Resource Locator. This is the exact storefront address. So when you type your own when you type your name of Amazon, you see there is immediately a URL is created upon the navigation, and you can directly go to the specific digital market space on the web. So that specific URL which start from HTTPS, and then there is www.amazon.com. So this is a specific URL address you are using. Then you have browser. So softwares like Google Chrome, and we have Apple Safari. So think of the browser as a digital translator. It reads the raw confusing HTML code and translate it into instantly beautiful visual. Okay, and which for example, you see a website for Amazon. So what our browser is doing, it is translating all the code which is written behind that Amazon website, and you can only see a beautiful visualization on your screen. So that is what browser does. All right. So why is this web so revolutionary? What is the impact of this web on e-commerce? So it introduced richness. All right, we discussed the part of the feature of e-commerce, which is richness. So before the web, online data was mostly boring. It was plain text. So web allowed merchants to combine the bold text, the high resolution product photos, interactive 3D models, and video reviews all into single marketing messages. So when you shop on an online makeup or fashion store, you aren't just reading the description of the product, right? You're watching a video of a model wearing it, looking at high definition zoom in photos, or clicking links related to the items. So that rich, engaging experience is entirely powered by the web layer. So let's look at the crown jewel at the top of our stack, that is the layer 3, mobile application. So this is the access and engagement layer. So you see, when in the time of reinvention period, e-commerce is entirely defined by the massive shift from the desktop computers to the mobile platform. So the mobile apps that came into being completely changed the game, because the mobile apps are native. All right, they are native to your device. This means that mobile app can plug directly into your phone's internal hardware, like your camera, your face ID, your microphone, and even your live GPS location. So you see, there are software programs which are designed specifically to run on your mobile OS. There are different OS like iOS, Android, and your mobile application are designed according to the OS you are using, and they are fitted into your mobile so that they are able to fetch all the information about you and get the customized recommendation of the products, and help you to buy products using mobile, right? So there are few key advantages of e-commerce. Advantages for e-commerce using the mobile application: first is ubiquity, because app allows us to sit at a desk and use this shopping experience that happens anytime and anywhere. So you can buy a plane ticket while standing in a grocery line, or while reading or while riding in a metro, right? So this is how it helps. Then there is location based services. So you see, wherever there is business where require GPS, like delivery apps like Uber. So these location based services get the help from mobile applications. All right, so mobile detects your exact coordinate and showcase the restaurant which is within the 5 kilometer radius, and lets you track your delivery, right? So this is a biggest example for the service based companies which provide services based on your location. And you see the concept of push notification. So unlike websites, right, so we have to wait passively, but mobile app can proactively nudge you, send you push notification again and again, and it can send personalized notification right to your lock screen saying, hey XYZ, that jacket in your cart is now 20% off. So you immediately go and interact with that particular thing, right? So there is a customer action which is driving through the mobile application. So this mobile application has given rise to app economy, right, and on demand services. So think of apps like Uber and Airbnb. The app itself is incredibly simple to use, but behind that clean interface is a complex real-time logistical network that is handling global payments, that is routing maps and driver coordination. So the mobile app act as a ultimate portal to the entire infrastructure. And that, Padhai Logic family, brings us to the absolute end of Unit 1. High five to everyone who stuck through it. So, before jumping into Unit 2, I want you to do some active recall right now. So, pause the video, look at the questions we just covered, and see if you can explain it to yourself or not. Try it, alright? Awesome. It's time to unlock Unit 2.